Is it Friday yet? Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology and welcome into the Vinyl Nation. So, what are we going to do today? You remember we reviewed that Ion turntable? It wasn't too bad. It was actually a pretty decent turntable recently. One thing we didn't do in that video was a teardown. So I figured today we do a teardown. Kind of in the mood for that. Had some other things I was kind of toying with. I was looking for the one thing that seemed the most interesting, and this is the winning bid, as it were. This is the winning idea. So I hope you guys are looking forward to a little teardown. Let's see what's inside that thing. You're not going to want to miss this. Behold, the Ion Select LP turntable. If you do want to see the full review and you didn't get a chance to do that yet, just check out the main channel feed of videos. It was like 3 or 4 videos back. I think we did it last weekend. Anyway, yeah, it's not half bad, but we need to find out what makes this thing tick. If we could find out any kind of tip on who makes it, that would be cool. Let's start by getting rid of this really scratched up dust cover, and we will start digging in. Easy as that. Somebody mentioned these small curly hairs on here. Not the most appetizing thing. I'll definitely want to clean up after I'm done here. I still haven't dusted this thing. I haven't cleaned it up or anything. We're going to start by taking this clip off, which will hopefully not go shooting across the room. I need to get better. I get so excited when I get into this stuff that I don't want to like take the time to put things where it belongs and stuff like that. I'm going to take the platter off. Obviously, it is a belt-driven turntable, this familiar platter design. Remember, we had to take off 2 of the nubs because one was missing, so it made the thing have terrible platter wobble. There's the sub-platter. Still has some grease on there, and the belt would go around that sub-platter as well. Something that you guys pointed out to me over the years when you put these back on, apparently these little nubs right here, you put the belt around the sub-platter and on one side around this little nub. That way, when you go to reinstall it, it holds it out over this motor position because it's really hard to kind of lower that platter on and try to get the belt in the right spot. I've tried doing that, but it doesn't really seem to make a huge difference. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit here because on this side of the turntable, we're going to look on the other side as well. There's not a whole lot to see. You can kind of get an idea for the thickness of the plinth. It looks like a good 3/4 inch, maybe even a little thicker plinth. It feels like a wood, and this will just be some sort of either a varnish or some sort of wrap or something over it. You can see the main spindle shaft there, plenty of grease. The motor right there and the belt, we'll set that aside. It is a flat belt. Standard issue. I'm sure that if you have a suitcase player, an all-in-one, or one of these, they will all be able to, have interchangeable belts, etc., etc. And looks like we got a little clear washer that came off on the bottom of the sub-platter. So that will probably make contact right there where that grease is and just provide it a little bit extra lubrication as it rotates there, a little less resistance. Now, when you have a turntable, ideally, you want, one of the benefits of a belt drive is to isolate motor rumble, motor noise from the cartridge. So higher end turntables will put the motor, instead of right here, they'll put it like over here or sometimes over here. And if it is over here, the higher end ones do that, like my RT85, the LP7. The motor's back here. Guess what? It's the furthest away possible from the cartridge because this is the transducer that's turning those mechanical vibrations of the groove, ideally, but really any kind of vibration it picks up into sound. So the closer this is to the motor means that you're going to be picking up unwanted sounds and vibrations. So that's not the best design. And once the cartridge is, closer to the inner side of the record, it's pretty dang close to that motor. So it kind of negates the benefits of a belt-driven turntable in that a belt isolates the platter, which is in contact with the cartridge, which is what you hear, from those motor vibrations, those motor inconsistencies. As I said in the other video, this does use a fairly common turntable mechanism, platter mechanism. You can see these ridges here, the 45 spacer, and all of the suitcase and all-in-one units have the motor right there. That's very common. But this one does have the added benefit of the magnetic cartridge. You can see clearly that the head shell is at a wonky angle. At the end of that video, people were like, did you see how bad off that was? I did see it, but testament to the 3600 cartridge, still sounded great with that direct feed sound test. So this is curious. I am not sure why we have a hole in the middle there. I don't see anything obvious that would go there. Perhaps, no, I was going to say a place for wires to go up, but you really wouldn't need that. And maybe it's a variation of this design that allows for the spindle to be in this position. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I really don't know why that is the way it is, but there's not much else to see here. And because this one doesn't have any damping between the plinth and this piece right here, it's like, you know, rigid to this. There's not much, you know, you can really do from this side. I don't even know if it can be taken off very easily. I'm going to try this trick one more time. So you can see I've got the belt around the sub platter and around this little peg here. So I need to position that so it's over the motor. We're going to put this over the spindle shaft, if I can line it up. And if this works, it'll pop it off that little peg, and then the belt will be in position. And I think it did it. We'll find out next time we turn it on. But right now we're not about turning it on, we're about opening it up. So let's flip it over and see what we can find out down there. Almost forgot to put on the C-clip again. Very tricky to do this. A flat screwdriver is a better tool. Basically, there's a little notch right there, and we need to get this sort of collar piece. It's called a C-clip or an E-clip right in there, and it kind of pops into position like that, and that keeps the platter from lifting off by accident. It's really handy with suitcase players because they get tilted in weird angles when they're carried places. Here is the bottom of the unit. You can see the plinth here, the bottom edge of that plinth. The rest of this is just like a plastic shell, which is fine. I mean, there's no issue for that. There's no, the weight of the unit isn't resting on this. It's resting just slightly above it with these feet. What I want to start with before we open this up, because this plastic piece will just come off and then we'll see everything, big reveal kind of moment. But I want to look at these motor trim pots, something that we touched on in the other video, but we didn't really get to look at them. So my guess is these are just little rubber caps to protect the trim pot. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So it's a little adhesive piece. Let's look down in that hole and see if it's really a trim pot. Okay, so you can't really see much. See a little black circle there. I think that really is a trim pot. So oftentimes the motor will have a little foam pad over the shaft where the trim pot is. And so it does two things. One, it protects that trim pot once it's factory set, and it allows you to see if somebody else has messed with the speed, because once that little foam disc is stabbed through with a screwdriver, then you know it's been adjusted. And on that note, it's sort of a slippery slope once you start adjusting these. It seems like it's a straightforward thing. And with the strobe disc, it can be done. But I will say this, a little bit of advice. Make sure that you have an actual jeweler's screwdriver or a eyeglass repair kit size screwdriver, which you can get at Walmart or anywhere for cheap. If you use like anything bigger than that, and I know this from experience, even like a tweaker tool or like a small screwdriver, it's just a little bit too big, and the metal shaft that you stick that thing down in will short, and what will happen is the motor will be full speed no matter what position you're at, unless you can stay right. It's kind of like a game of Operation. You want to go right down that shaft without touching the metal edges. It's kind of annoying, but something to be aware of. I learned that the hard way. Then once you get adjusting, just know that these are tiny adjustments, and sometimes it's hard to get it just right. I've gone in here to tweak things before on, other turntables, and have been really like regretful that I wasted, I ended up worse than where I started is what I'm trying to say. So, okay. I wouldn't normally rotate this thing around on its dust cover like that, but it's already scratched up. And this is a learning tool for both of us. We're going to experiment on this. If this was like my premium turntable, I probably would have like a towel under this or something, because, those polycarbonate dust covers, well, they take up scratches easily. As you can see, this one's already scratched to high heaven. Now that we know for sure what those are, which makes sense, let's get inside the guts of the beast. There are a number of screws, and that's boring to watch somebody do. So I'm going to go ahead and take those screws out, but I'm not going to remove it until I start the camera up, and we're going to watch that moment together, that big reveal. All right. And by the way, I mentioned this because when I was editing the video last week, I realized I missed something. Let's see if I can zoom in far enough here. you will see, hopefully, that it says material MDF. So that is a legit MDF plinth, which is a good thing. I mean, that is an audiophile grade substance for plinths. It's got good resonance properties, etc., etc. Sometimes as I'm editing, I'm like, dang it, I missed something. One thing that I like to do is to figure out who made something, because it's never the company that's brand is on the device. You know what I mean? It's never like Ion, I'm sure, doesn't make anything. They import, they perhaps have a hand in designing things. That's my guess, but it's probably pretty accurate. So who does make this? Now, if it's a Bluetooth enabled device, it's very easy because the FCC requires them to put an FCC ID on the label. But like a device like this doesn't have any Bluetooth functionality. They don't have to do that. So we're going to look inside for clues. We probably won't find it. They're usually good about not leaving a lot of tracks behind, but it'll still be really interesting. So, all right, I think I've got this removed adequately. It seems like it's hanging up on the back. Oh, it's the clips. So we're going to have to remove this carefully here. And here we go. Big reveal, you guys. Are you ready? Here's the money shot. Whoa. Okay. We're stuck to something. What am I stuck to? Okay, I had to remove a wire braid. I promise I didn't peek too much, but just enough to get this thing off, okay? Here's the big reveal. So there's not much. I did it again. I dumped the thing over and all the screws went everywhere. That's really, really annoying. Okay, so there's not much to it. Here's the bottom side of this device. You can see the unpainted MDF material, which MDF, by the way, is medium density fiberboard. It's basically like a particle board. And you can see the wood dust from where those screws from the bottom side here, the plastic piece, just go right into the wood. That's one thing that, you don't want to be taking these apart over and over again, because when they screw into the wood directly like that, when there's not a proper receptacle or sleeve, it's just going to eventually strip out. It's just wood. I mean, you could put glue in there and, get some more life out of it. You don't want to be doing this a lot, is what I'm trying to say. So we've got the mechanism here that is, we've seen this, the bottom side of this. We're going to look at this in more detail. On the bottom side of the lid, we have, I guess what you would consider, it's helpful if you can see it. This is the main circuit board. So this is going to contain the preamp, which will have the RIAA curve in it. Let's take a look at this board in more detail, see if we can get any more clues. Okay, so this is a PCB, and we've got some caps, some resistors. There's the back side of those jacks. Here's the power button, sort of a plunger switch. Very interesting. Here is an IC. What does that say? JYK, as in the motor company? I am not. So I'm guessing that might be... Keep me honest here, guys. Is that possibly the preamp itself? Let's think about this. You can follow these traces and kind of figure it out. Like, see how it says RCA1 up there? Hard to say. There's a couple more chips there, 3 more chips. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not an electrician. My dad is probably shaking his head right now in shame. He's like, what are you doing? You should know this stuff. You were raised better than this. But anyway, that is the board, and that is all there is to it. That is the electronic side of things. Everything else is going to be electromechanical. And the rest of this shell is just a hollow plastic shell. This wire braid connects this piece to the other piece, which we'll look at here in a minute. And as I was saying before, you can see the unfortunate remnants of that wood fiber dust. Looking at this side right here, so there is a little board there and the receptacle for that wire braid, for that plug for the other board. You'll also see a trim pot there, the little white thing right here. So that is the 78 speed adjuster. Remember how I said it was separate from the motor? Well, that's why, because it's done on the board in a different way. Whereas the speed controls for the actual motor itself, high and low position speed adjustments are done on the motor itself. High would be the 33 RPM. No, it would be the 45 RPM. The low would be 33 RPM. This is a JYK motor, the same motor that's in virtually every record player under 150 bucks. And that's about all there is to see here. Let's see. We've got a contact switch for when you rotate the tone arm across there, so you can see Let me use this to point to it. You can see this contact switch. So as this triangular piece, which is attached to the bottom of the tone arm, when it pivots away, this contact switch closes, and that's how it knows to spin the record. Also, there is going to be the controls in here for the auto stop as well. You can see different wire configurations, wire connections for the speed control, the auto stop on and off, etc., etc. And check it out. Remember those foam discs I was talking about? It looks like somebody's already punctured them. From what actually, you know what? I take that back. That looks like it's factory cut, the way it's like exactly cut in straight lines. So that one might have come from the factory. Usually they're sealed up. This one looks like somebody adjusted it. So that would be the 45 RPM, the way that it's just been punched. Now, when I was talking about screwdrivers, and that's about how far down you have to go to hit the pot. Remember I was talking about a screwdriver has to be tiny, tiny, tiny? Even this, if I touch the edge of that casing, it'll short out. So it's very important that you get a very, very small screwdriver. And this is the absolute largest I would go. I would recommend a smaller one. Another thing we can look at from this angle is the edge of that MDF, that particle board, and where the cover is glued on. You can see it's just glued on right to the very edge there, that shiny, glossy sort of piano black finish, which looks gorgeous. But you can see it doesn't matter that it's exposed at this angle, because you're not supposed to be looking at this angle, right? You're going to void your warranty. You might even shock yourself, so don't do this. Just watch this show where I do it. And if I shock myself, it's okay. It's a funny thing. But yeah, one last look there. That is the inside of the Ion Profile LP. As I always say, guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting Record-ology and for being there. More important than anything, your friendship, communicating in the chat, in the comment section, watching us week after week. We really appreciate it. So thank you as always. Give this video a thumbs up while you're at it, guys. Happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.